Hello there and welcome to the video. In this video I found a pretty nice game that I think demonstrates very nicely the power of the bishop pair. Also we will learn a very important lesson when it comes to the knights or the pair of knights and the particular weakness that can't be exploited. So without further ado, let's see the game. It's Dmitry Andreikin with white and Frank Ashiku with black. Andreikin, of course, a well-known 2700 plus Russian Grandmaster, very strong, and Frank Ashiku is an international master from Albania. So okay, c4 by Andreikin. So obviously Andreikin is the rating favorite here, but a pretty nice game. So we have the semi-Slav here, knight f3, d5, e3, e6. But notice that white hasn't played d4. So white is trying to take advantage of the fact that he hasn't played d4, play it at the right moment, or try to find ways to take advantage of not having played it. So we continue actually with moves that we might normally see with a pawn on d4, but white sort of keeps, his options open. First of all, the diagonal is now open. Second of all, the d4 square is open. And this actually gives a lot of options. After bishop d6, queen to c2, queen e7. White has some lines where he plays with even a pawn sacrifice right here. He can play with rook g1 and g4. He can play that, before or after he plays bishop e2, as he played in the game, bishop e2 and castles. So he could play for like rook g1 and g4, sometimes even castle queenside. Interesting lines, but in this game Andreikin went with castles. And we have b6 by Frank. Now, this allows white to take on d5, which Andreikin did. We would love to take with the e-pawn, which he didn't, because now knight d4 is a little bit annoying, because we hit the pawn, and if you defend it naturally, now knight f5, then we take the bishop, and our bishop here on b2 is very strong. So black does not want to allow that, so he recaptures with the c-pawn. But this allows white to actually grab the pair of bishops. He plays knight to b5. And it's not easy to get this bishop out of harm's way, because if you go here, I can play knight c7. Hit the rook, you have to take it, and I get your black squared bishop. Also there's bishop a3 in some lines, which might actually lose material, so black actually can't move the bishop. So he plays bishop a6, pinning the b5 knight. But now there's knight f2, d4. And now this guy is defended. Black faces some issues. He decides to take on b5. The natural move seems to be like rook after c8, but white has knight c6 here. And then we can chop off on d6 and take on a6. And we get the bishop pair similar to in the game. So okay, knight takes. Rook fc8, the queen went to d1, and after a6, Andreikin took on d6. So now we have the bishop pair against the knight pair. Usually favorable for the bishop pair. And yeah, this game was no exception, as we'll see. Rook to c1, challenging the file. And now a5 by black. Perhaps this is a small mistake, and b5 should have been played, which is probably more resilient to play like this. But he played a5, and this allows white to take over some squares. Bishop b5. And maybe we can attach a question mark to the move a5. So it doesn't take much. Queen f8. White makes luft with h3. Queen d8. And queen to f3. Connecting the rooks, and also eyeing a nice diagonal here for the queen. Lining up pretty nicely with the bishop as well. So we have a trade, rook c8, another trade, and now queen g3. And now the threat is actually bishop takes d7 because of the pressure on g7. Notice also that a move like queen c2, we can actually just take on f6 because this is pinned, and if you take with a knight, there's a back rank mate. So black can't do that. So black went for the queen trade. He played queen b8. And white accepted. He took on b8, and played bishop to e5. And now we see the bishop wants to come into c7 and pressure the pawns. So black tried to hold on, knight d7. And this looks like it should be, okay, hold the ball. I mean, the knights are defending each other, and they're defending the pawn. But the bishops are very strong. Look at this, bishop c7. So this means that this knight can't move because this pawn drops. It also means that this knight can't move because it's protecting this knight. So the knights are, you know, kind of stuck protecting each other. So I guess we have to bring the king in, right? Play something like king f8, king e7, and then maybe knight here, hit the bishop. Well, guess what? Bishop to d8. Now you can't go here. And if you try to approach, then this knight is pinned and I can take the pawn. So black is kind of in a zugzwang here. He can only move the pawns. He played g5, and now simply g4. e5 and f4. And it turns out the only thing white has to do is try to organize a pawn push to hit this knight. Black took here, and now notice that he can't take this because of g5. This will hit the knight, and then he will win the other knight. So naturally black played h6, but white simply took and played h4. And this was actually the last move of the game. He resigned. So we did not only see the power of the bishops, we also saw how vulnerable the knights can be. And let's put up a fantasy position. Notice how vulnerable the knights can be if they protect each other. The king is attacking both of them. And this simply means that if one knight moves, the other knight drops. So one king is able to paralyze 6 points of material when they stand like this. The knights are completely paralyzed, and white actually wins just by pushing the pawn and bringing the knight in somehow. Maybe king d5, knight here, and this is actually winning for white. Same thing here. Black is in big trouble with threatening to take. If you take like this, and this is why he resigned, then we play g5. This knight has to move, and this knight drops. If black had tried to defend, let's say he had played king g7 earlier. So let's lose a move for white just to demonstrate. Let's say he had this. This actually doesn't save anything because even if you protect like this, now this knight is pinned and we can take this one. So a nice lesson in the power of the bishop pair, and also, be aware your knights, they are vulnerable when they are protecting each other. It can be very, very tricky, as you saw in this game. And here the bishops were able to, pressure one knight each and put on a lot of pressure. And that was enough. So very nice game, and thank you for watching. See you in the next one.